Welcome everyone to Spirit Pig. This is the show that explores how to live a fulfilled, fun, meaningful, and all-round awesome life. I'm Duncan CJ, and in this episode we have an amazing expert, Steve Taylor. I saw him on stage a few months ago doing a TED Talk, and I immediately knew that he was someone that we just had to invite on. And so in this conversation, he discusses the three main ways that we as a society try and find happiness, the reasons why we're looking for it in completely the wrong place, and then he gives some practical tips and advice on ways to find true happiness. Coming up right now on Spirit Pig. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to Spirit Pig. I'm really excited today. I've got an awesome guest. We've got Dr. Stephen Taylor, and Stephen is a senior lecturer in psychology at Leeds Metropolitan University. He's a multiple best-selling author. His books have been published in 16 languages, essays in academic journals, magazines, newspapers, and is regularly called up by the media and has appeared on BBC Radio, TV, The Guardian, Independent. And I think his work has been described by Eckhart Tolle as an important contribution to the shift in consciousness which is happening on our planet at present. And last but not least, he is voted the 31st most spiritually influential living person in Mind, Body, Spirit magazine. And he's appeared in their top 100, I think, for the last 3 years running, I think. So it's a huge honour to have him here. So thanks so much, Steve, for being here.
No problem. Thanks, Duncan.
Now, when I was doing the sort of like research for this and like finding out a bit about you and like all your work, I've been absolutely torn about what sort of direction and questions I want to go with this, because I've been looking and reading some of your articles, and every single one, I mean, I went on your Twitter and your Facebook and seeing some of your recent things you've been posting, and every single one has, I mean, I've been desperate to talk, so this is going to be quite hard, but I'm going to focus on one, but I'm going to put in the show notes just for everyone else to check out. There's 3 great articles which you've written recently. One about just the madness of Black Friday and just materialism, and that was a really interesting article. And then another one all about what we can learn from Indian Americans and their relationship with nature, and how we've actually in the Western world got it, some a little bit backwards, and in our relationship to nature. And you brought up some really fascinating points, and also some great ones about kindness. So I was like, which one? I mean, do we do a really vague interview where I try and touch on everything, or let's have a bit of focus? But if it's okay with you, I was actually looking through the archives, and this is one from a few years ago, but you did an essay all about happiness, and I don't know if, like, since you wrote that, there's been, your thoughts have changed at all, or whether it's still, similar to that. But there was a quote which you mentioned on that, and it really, I thought that was actually one of the impetus, thinking actually that would be a great topic to actually maybe hear your thoughts on a little bit more. And I'm just going to read it out. It was, happiness or contentment is human beings' most natural state. The problem, simplistic though it may sound, is that we've lost our bearings and have largely forgotten where true happiness is. It only seems so difficult to find because we're looking for it in the wrong place. And that really made me think, because you go on to discuss, and I'd love you maybe just to, for the viewers, just to maybe reiterate a couple of things, but in the modern world, a lot of us think of happiness as something that comes from the outside, and something exterior that we can get. And you talk about something called a happiness paradigm, where there's lots of different ways that we try and find happiness, but there's sort of 3 main ways. And is it possible just to maybe illuminate everyone just maybe a bit on sort of materialistic happiness, hedonistic, and then ego-based happiness?
Okay. I think in our society, our particular happiness paradigm is mainly that happiness lies with wealth, accumulating possessions and accumulating more and more money, having the best of everything, buying the most fashionable things, and the best kind of material goods. So that's one way. And obviously that's that ideal of happiness is promoted by our societies too. As part of the capitalist ethos that happiness means money. But also, we're taught that happiness means success as well. It means achieving things in your life. It means rising to high levels in your career, accumulating more and more status. And that's ego-based happiness. Ego-based happiness means achievement, status, success, fame, power. And I guess in our societies, you can see that in a very crude way with, celebrity TV shows, and everybody wants to get on the cover of Hello magazine to get on reality TV shows, just to have their 15 minutes of fame. And people believe that happiness lies in attention, being a significant person, whether it's through fame, success, or power. And then finally, hedonistic happiness is simply feeling good, so having nice things, eating lots of chocolate, sitting in a warm room, watching nice TV programs. In an extreme way, it could be taking drugs. Any kind of physical, biological pleasure.
Okay.
In our society, that is the basic happiness paradigm.
Are these happiness? I mean, when we say that sort of true happiness, and these are sort of false happinesses, but are these happinesses? Are they not valid at all, or is it just not? It's not true happiness. What's the differentiation?
Well, I don't think they're invalid. They're valid to a degree. I mean, the thing about materialistic happiness, we do have basic material needs which we have to satisfy in order to survive. In psychology, there is the famous hierarchy of needs from Abraham Maslow that shows that the fundamental basic need for all human beings is physiological needs like for food, for drink, for safety, for security, and we have to satisfy those basic needs. But beyond that, once you satisfy those basic needs, materialism doesn't really satisfy you. No matter how much you get, it doesn't really satisfy you. Even billionaires, there's a lot of research showing that people like billionaires are not significantly happier than other people. And they actually suffer from more psychopathological symptoms than other people. They suffer from more depression, more anxiety, more psychological disorders. So once you've satisfied your basic needs, materialism doesn't bring any happiness. It's a kind of false idea of happiness which takes us away from real happiness. And again, in terms of ego-based happiness, maybe we need a certain amount of attention, a certain amount of approval from the people around us. We need to feel that we are loved. We need to feel that we belong. But beyond a certain point, again, it doesn't bring us any real satisfaction. It's a question of needs. Once you satisfy the basic needs, there's no motivation really to follow these methods in terms of happiness. So
that food, water, shelter, and so once you've got those basic needs, then why do you think that? I mean, is this sort of media society that we've almost trained ourselves, or we're believing this lie that we do need these things, or is this actually like an innate thing that we all have, this need for fervent, for more material, for more ego, for more pleasure? Or is this something that's through society to try and keep us spending lots of money, staying in? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand it.
Okay. Well, fundamentally, I think it's because there is a psychological lack or spiritual lack inside us. I think most people in general, experience a degree of psychological discord within them. And in my last book, Back to Sanity, I called it humania. It's the fundamental madness of human beings. And the madness partly comes from a sense of separation. We have a kind of illusion that we are separate entities who live in our own mental space. So we are in here. The world seems to be out there. So there's a fundamental duality between us and the world. And that sense of separation, it creates a lot of problems. It creates a sense of isolation, a sense of aloneness within our own mental space. It creates a sense that the world is somehow threatening, because it's giant. The world's a gigantic place. It's outside us. It's out there. So we feel it's kind of threatening in a strange way. So I think there's a fundamental kind of existential discord which many people experience due to that separation.
Yeah.
But also, there's a kind of restlessness inside us due to our minds as well. Our minds chatter away when their attention isn't occupied. You're lying in bed at night and thoughts are rushing through your mind. you're waiting at the bus stop or at the tube stop, and thoughts start to rush through your mind. And that this fundamental restlessness, this thought chatter, also creates a kind of discord inside us. So one of our most basic needs is to try to escape from this discord, or try to cover it up in some sense, to alleviate it in some way.
With things, be it alcohol, be it shopping, be it sex, be it we're looking for things to effectively we're not complete. We've got a hole, and so we're looking to fill these with exterior things. And
Yeah.
I think you went on to say that one main problem, and then those were the three main ones, and then you went in, and I'll link up the article because there was other ones which were important. Like there was the future-based happiness, need satisfaction, event-based happiness. But you said one problem with all these is that they're fleeting, they're temporary, they're like, they come and then they go, and they wear off. And you've got something called the law of diminishing returns. And you went on to describe something called dangerous pleasures. And could you maybe just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, well, all of these forms of happiness work to a degree. Hedonism gives you a thrill while it lasts.
Yeah.
If you achieve success, you gain a limited temporary happiness through feeling how great you are, and a sense of satisfaction, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is temporary. It fades away quite quickly. Hedonism, the thrill of hedonistic happiness, fades away as soon as the substance or the activity stops. Ego-based happiness lasts for a while, but for a few days, maybe a few weeks at the most, it fades away, and you're back to feeling your normal self. And the law of diminishing returns means that however frequently we experience these kinds of happiness, they gradually wear off. We gradually become used to them. I mean, adaptation is one of the fundamental aspects of human experience. The more we experience the same phenomena, the weaker it becomes. The less affected we are by it. We become gradually sensitized to all our experience. So all of these forms of happiness are, they're not necessarily negative, but they're all temporary, and they all fade away. And ultimately, if you keep repeating these forms of happiness, you have to have, it's a bit like being a drug addict. If you're a heroin addict, for example, as the months go by, your body adapts to the substance. So you have to inject yourself with more and more heroin to get the same effect. So it becomes more and more dangerous, the longer you do it. And that's why people have overdoses, because they stop for a while and then they inject themselves with the same substance, but they become, they become desensitized to it. But so in the same way that, if you're a famous person who is addicted to approval and attention, you have to keep increasing the amount of fame you have to get the same effect. And, the same way if you're for example, a materialistic person, in order to have the same effect, you have to keep getting richer and richer, more and more possessions to get the same effect. And eventually you have to push that to dangerous extremes, and in terms of hedonism, that can lead to overdoses, excess, degeneracy, debauchery, and so forth.
I think you mentioned, there's a really interesting point where I think you said something like, if you were an ego-based person and you got your thrill, or not, you got your sense of worth through maybe how much money you got, it's because it's very dependent on the circumstances. So say, for example, you're looking at some friends, or you're looking at other people who have less money, then okay, I've got more money, so you get your ego boost. But then this is just as fleeting, because if you look up and look at somebody who's got more money than you, then you lose your sense of your worth. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's in that sense, happiness is always relative, particularly in terms of status and fame or celebrity, even power. Your sense of satisfaction with your own degree of status always depends on other people. So if you compare yourself to people who have more status, you feel a sense of dissatisfaction. Obviously, maybe if you compare yourself to people who have less status, that gives you a sense of satisfaction. But it just shows you how relative and how kind of unsatisfying these forms of happiness are. They're very fragile and very vulnerable.
So if I'm listening to this, and up until this point, I've I've sort of got my sense of worth through. I've got a good job. I've a nice house. I go on good holidays, and but I can resonate with this. Like, what in contrast? So that's sort of set the scene. This is what a lot of us think is happiness with these exterior things. You talk about something called flow, and what on in the contrast is more true happiness.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially when they reach middle age, they get to a point in their lives when they think, I've got these things now. I'm successful. I've got the material goods I wanted. I'm in a fairly stable situation. But why am I not happy? Why haven't these things satisfied me?
Mm.
I think people at that stage, they begin to feel a sense of real sense of existential dissatisfaction, which can manifest itself in drinking, in order to escape from this dissatisfaction.
By existential dissatisfaction. So, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that they feel like there's something more that they're missing? Or...
Yeah, they feel like there's something missing. They feel a real sense of restlessness and discontent inside themselves. And they don't really know where it's coming from because they feel as though they should be satisfied, but they feel deep down in their being that there is something missing, something lacking.
Mm.
They feel that they have been deceived by these ideals of happiness. And like I say, that can manifest itself in drinking a lot in order to escape that dissatisfaction, or it can lead people to think, if happiness doesn't lie in these things, then where is happiness? And they begin to search, they begin to explore happiness, different sources of happiness.
Mm.
And maybe these people begin to sense that there is a kind of inner happiness which doesn't depend on external circumstances, which doesn't depend on material goods or status or achievement. And, you mentioned flow. Flow is a dimension of that inner happiness. Flow is a state of consciousness or a state of being we experience when our attention is very engaged in certain activities. It's usually related to things like, it could be related to nature, for example. Gardening is quite a big flow activity. Any activity, really, which focuses our attention, which challenges us to some degree. People get it from creative activities like dancing, like writing, painting, and so forth. Mm. So particularly creative activities. Maybe when people turn away from materialism, they turn away from status seeking, they begin to focus on creativity. They begin to unfold their own creative potentials, and they begin to find a touch or a glimpse of inner happiness in that sense.
Amazing. And so, what kind of advice would you give somebody to find more inner happiness flow? I mean, are we talking meditation? Is this religion? Is this finding something which you are truly passionate about, like going back to the drawing board and actually thinking what really gets me sort of excited? Or is it a combination of these things? Or I'm just in your experience, what do you think works, or is a good sort of maybe starting point for somebody who's listening to this and thinking, I want to find more sort of inner happiness?
Well,
it's a bit of an open question. Sorry, how to be happy? Go. Sorry.
This is my manifesto of happiness.
Pick your words carefully.
I think it's a combination, as you said. I think we need to engage in certain activities which we know instinctively, and also which research shows actually do bring us a more permanent and stable well-being. On one level, it's activities. So, for example, it's very well established that contact with nature brings human beings a great deal of inner happiness. Mm. So it's very helpful to spend time, at least half an hour a day walking in the park or in the countryside. Some exposure to nature. I think it has a very sort of settling, relaxing effect on our minds, on our beings. And it brings us a sense of, it calms down the restlessness of our minds and gives us a glimpse of inner harmony. And also creative activities which bring flow, so people need to find, or it's ideal for us to find, one particular activity which we can engage in, which can unlock our creative potentials, whether it's making practical stuff like making things, whether it's gardening, dancing, music, things like that. So it's important to find activities like that. And but
What's the difference to? I mean, obviously there is a difference, but um, say for example you get your sense of happiness or worth from shopping, which is an exterior thing because it's trying to fill. But if you're then doing it with gardening, is it not like a slightly softer, nicer version, but kind of the same thing? Or because if suddenly gardening was taken away from you, then is your happiness gone? Or is it something? Is it not necessarily the gardening itself? It's the actual act of expression. So you're turning it to gardening, but you could be turning it to something else. Is
yeah, well, it's partly, or is to a large extent, it's the effect which gardening has on your mind or on your being. An activity like gardening has a kind of mind quietening effect. It empties your mind of like, worries and anxieties. It slows you down. It makes you able to live in the moment. So it gives you a sense of presence. So it has a very calming, connecting effect on your being. It gives you a sense of connection to nature as well. As human beings, we spent the last few 100,000 years deeply connected to nature. It's only really in the last few decades that we become disconnected from the natural world. So any time that we spend engaging directly with nature has a very calming and connecting effect on us. So that state of mind, which is induced by gardening, can last for a few hours afterwards, even once the activity is finished. And you can pick the activity up again and tune into that state of being again. But in shopping, I mean, shopping is quite a frenetic, busy activity. You're surrounded by crowds, by lights, by activity. So it gives you a bit of a thrill, and it gives you a kind of instinctive thrill of buying something, of owning something. But in terms of the effect it has on your mind, it has quite an agitative effect on your mind. And if anything, it makes you feel a bit disconnected, a bit agitated. So you come away, even though you have a thrill of buying something or owning something, you come away feeling quite agitated. So that's the difference. But in terms of, you mentioned meditation. I mean, I think things like that are very important too.
Do you meditate?
I do, yeah. In fact, I meditated briefly this morning. But yeah, meditation is a very effective way of inducing well-being. Partly because it empties our minds of those restless, worrying thoughts, and you feel a sense of relaxation, a sense of connecting to your own being, and it's as if when our minds chatter away with random thoughts, daydreams about what's going to happen in the future, or memories of what happened yesterday or the day before. It's as if we're kind of trapped on the surface of our consciousness. These thoughts kind of really, they crowd our minds, they make us feel a bit claustrophobic, and they trap us on the surface. So when you meditate, and when you gradually slow your thoughts down and gradually empty your being, it's as if you sort of go beyond the surface of your being and relax into deeper levels of your own consciousness. There's a sense of expansion. Your mind seems to somehow be a bigger space because it's less crowded with thought activity. But I think maybe the biggest source of well-being is actually inside us, within our own being. I think there is a quality of our own being which is well-being. I think well-being is the nature of consciousness itself. So when you empty your mind through meditation or through any activity, whether it's gardening or walking in the countryside or being engaged in a flow activity like dancing or playing music or listening to music, when your mind becomes more empty and more quiet, then you tune into this natural well-being which is inside us. And it's surprising, some people don't even know it's there, even though we probably all touch into it sometimes, when times of quietness, maybe at times when we're in the countryside or in contact with nature.
Yeah. So accidental meditation almost, when you're not sitting down thinking, okay, I'm going to meditate. You might have just been sitting on a beach looking at, listening to the waves, and then suddenly that sort of lost in thought,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I think many people, even though they don't realize it, they're actually seeking this inner well-being, this sense of inner well-being, which I've talked about. And some people get it through playing sports, maybe through swimming, through running, mountain climbing, through a variety of different activities. Some people get it through music, through playing music, through creativity. So even though they're not aware of it, I think some people actually seek this sense of inner well-being. It's a bit like it's like a glow of well-being that fills you in these moments. In moments of relaxation, when we're lying on the beach on holiday, any moment of quietness in our lives, we may experience this glow of inner well-being, which is always there, but we tend to forget it or be unaware of it because we're so focused on gaining happiness outside.
Yes, you don't actually realize. It sounds cheesy, but you don't actually realize it's necessarily you're already perfect, you're already happy, but we're constantly, kidding ourselves that we've got to run around quickly trying to find happiness there, and it's all fleeting. When actually just taking it back to the body through your breath, through actually all mindfulness, it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's why I think that quietness is really important. Like, just to have periods of inactivity and quietness in your normal week. I sometimes advise people to. I'm not Jewish, but I like the Jewish idea of the Sabbath. Having one day each week when you empty the day of activity. You're not allowed to do anything. You have to be. You have to allow yourself to reconnect and to spend the day in quietness and inactivity. So, but I think it would be really useful if people could have maybe schedule 3 or 4 periods of inactivity and quietness throughout the week. If they could just write in their schedules or their diaries,
inactivity,
2 or 3 hours of nothing, not even watching TV, not even writing emails, just quietness, inactivity, maybe listening to a bit of music, going for a walk, doing nothing. And those periods of inactivity would allow us to reconnect with a sense of well-being inside us. And once we reconnect with it, it can actually flow through into our activities as well. It can actually spread a sense of ease and gracefulness even into our activities as well.
So yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that's one of the things that that I love about meditation is whether I think thinking, am I actually doing it right or am I doing it wrong? It's kind of almost missing the point. Just having every morning or every evening, like the day might be chaos. You don't know what's going to happen. You might be late, it might be traffic, stuff at work, but you can almost bookend. You've got the choice how you can start and how you end your day. And so if you start every day or end the day just with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, don't think I have to sit down and do half an hour. Just start small, just start with 5 minutes. If that's all you need, then you can build it up. But just having that 5 minutes, 10 minutes just to sit in silence, whether you're being a good meditator, bad meditator, like I don't know what even is that, just to have that quiet time, and you feel like the whole actual day completely flows in a whole different note if you actually start it in that way.
Yeah, that's right. It allows you to reconnect with a deeper aspect of yourself, and once you've reconnected with that part of yourself, you feel more stable somehow. You feel like you have a strong foundation, and as a result, you don't seem to be as affected by stress. You seem to be able to manage activities better. You really feel as if you're rooted deeply inside yourself, and that deep rootedness really allows you to cope better with everyday life.
Fantastic. And now I'm cautious of time because I know that this is a morning talk and we've both all got to run off to work. But maybe just one last question. What would you, if you had to give? And I'm putting you on the spot, so you don't have to answer this. But if you had like just one bit of advice or one thing that the listeners could maybe do today that you feel they could have a really positive effect on their lives, in terms of just happiness, well-being, just finding a more fulfilling time, what would that be?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say 2 things.
Okay, cheated.
Oh yeah, it's difficult to. Okay, the first thing is awareness. Like whatever people are doing, whether you're walking down the street, it's habitual for us to give our attention to other things besides our actual experience. We think about what's going to happen later today. We remember what happened last night, or maybe we listen to music on our headphones, or maybe we text on our phones. But if you're walking down the street, give your attention to where you are now. Look around you at the buildings, look at the people around you. But most importantly, be aware of your own body. Be aware of your feet as they meet the pavement as you're walking. Be aware of the sensation of the air against your face. Be aware of the sky above you, the trees around you. So bring your attention into the present moment. And you can do that when you eat. If you eat, bring your attention to the taste of the food, to the flavor of the food, to the sensation of yourself eating the food. You can do it when you have a shower or brush your teeth. Just give your attention to your experience. And you'll find that has a transformational effect. It makes you feel really intensely alive, and it gives you a sense of well-being. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I'd say, altruism and kindness. Perform an act of kindness, because when you perform an act of kindness, it has a connecting effect. It connects you to the person you're acting kindly towards, but also if other people witness the act of kindness, it gives them a sense of connection too. When we witness acts of kindness, it gives us a sense of warmth and a sense of elation and a sense of renewed faith in human nature. So there's like a sort of three-way connecting effect in any act of kindness or altruism. So yeah, I think both of those things will have a transformational effect.
And the fact that, because if you do an act of kindness, it's the sort of the person actually giving the act, receiving it. And because you said there's now this third person, enough people giving kindness actually create a ripple effect.
Yeah. And once you witness an act of kindness, it encourages you to be kind as well. So it has a really powerful ripple effect all around the city, all around the world eventually.
Start a movement.
Yeah, good idea.
And that's based on that last point. I'll link up an article which is about that point, which I think you wrote in the in Psychology Today and also in the Daily Mirror, was it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I wrote I think it was International Kindness Day in November, just a few weeks ago, and the Daily Mirror asked me to write an article about the effect of witnessing acts of kindness.
Fantastic. I'll link that up. And Steve, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Just finally, how can people find out more about you and your work? Where's the best place for us to send them?
My website is www.stephenmtaylor.com. That's the best place to go, and then you can link up to my Facebook page and my blog on Psychology Today, and there are lots of my essays on the website too.
Yeah, they're fascinating. Some really, I spend hours and hours going through the archives. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It's been fascinating talking to you, and hopefully talk soon.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Duncan. I enjoyed it. That was great.